Hi, I'm Sim,
Hi, I'm Patrick.
and we're two white guys with a podcast. Just kidding. We're Wizard Core. We'll, we'll get it right.
Yeah, one day.
Today's topic. Oh, we're two nerdy fellas, best friends.
Yes, that like to talk
Why do I
about.
always forget this?
And I forgot to. Man, we need to shake the
We're
rust
like-
off this pod. I need
Dude,
to like.
I think we're pretty good up until like pressing recording,
Yeah.
and then we're like, "Ugh."
No, yeah,
It's
exactly.
so weird sometimes.
But yeah, we're two guys that like to talk about movies and stuff.
Video
And
games and movies and television. And today's topic,
video games.
Video
Yet
games.
again.
yeah, from 2008 specifically.
Yes.
Because me and Patrick were talking
Literally right before
literally
this.
right before this.
We were discussing like, what are we going to talk about?
we
And
had
started
some
talking
other
about
topics, but we
Yeah.
got on.
talking about 2008
Yeah,
as like a
because-
year for video games.
Yeah, we realized that like Fallout 3 and Little Big Planet came out the same year, and then
Yeah.
I was like, what other games came out?
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, it is like the most stacked
I-
year
I-
of video games ever, dude.
I-
How do you? It was a great time
Yeah.
to be a gamer. And an
Yeah.
awful time to be a house owner,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
correlates.
Oh yeah, because I remember I looked over at you because you were looking up like the list, and you practically were doing this. I looked over and you were just like, oh,
Yeah.
and like your phone.
Yeah, no,
and, like,
I literally went, what the fuck? I had like
Yeah.
a visceral reason to it. Of
Yeah.
how many games? Let's just go over the list real quick.
Yeah, just
I'll
read
go.
the list.
I will read
It's
this.
insane.
This is all the video games from two. This is the top games, just based off of quick Google search of video games 2008. Grand Theft Auto 4, Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of Liberty, Fallout 3, Left 4 Dead, Gears of War 2, God of War: Chains of Olympus. I think that was the prequel.
Yeah.
Then Little Big Planet.
Wait, when did
Fable 2.
finish?
Yeah.
finish.
Persona 4, Devil May Cry 4, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Call of Duty World at War, Mario Kart Wii, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, Burnout Paradise, Mirror's Edge, Battlefield Bad Company, Spider-Man Web of Shadows, Alone in the Dark, Army of Two, Braid.
Braid came out in 2000. Is
Yeah.
Braid the one that's like the 2D time
Yes.
one? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Keep going.
Far Cry 2, Saints Row 2, Indiana Jones, Lego Indiana Jones. You always got to get, and Lego Batman.
Dude, they're all bangers.
Soul Calibur 4, the Lost video game.
Maybe not that one.
Yeah,
but
maybe not that one. Tomb Raider Underworld. I heard that was like pretty mid. Rock Band 2, Turok, Command and Conquer Red Alert 3, Crash, Mind Over Mutant.
that game was okay.
Yeah. Need for Speed Undercover, Guitar Hero World Tour, Resistance 2, Dead Space, and Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Oh yeah. When did God of War 3 come out? Was that like 2010 or was that 2008? I'm asking because of that God of War, because I remember God of War 3 was definitely like a release title. Or if it wasn't a release title.
2010.
Okay, so it came out a couple of years afterwards, but I just remember like that God of War 3 was like one of the games. But we're talking about this, if it wasn't obvious.
Chains of Olympus was the PSP one, I think, right?
I don't know,
Okay,
to be
whatever.
honest.
Yeah, who cares?
But we're talking about this year in gaming because I feel like I've known that 2008 was a gigantic year for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read that list, I literally, in my mind, I was like, banger, banger,
Yeah.
banger,
All of
banger. Just like all of them. And you know
Gears of War
this.
2. I remember back to back Gears of War 2 and World at War. I rented from Blockbuster, and I beat both of those games in a weekend. I think they came out around the same time. I remember that. That was. I can't believe that was too. That was the same year Fallout 3, because we were talking about how.
Well, because we were talking somehow. I think we were talking about. Oh, I remember what we were talking about. I was talking about how I'm trying to get
Fallout?
back. We were
Yeah.
talking about Fallout because I was saying I'm getting back into Skyrim because I've never given Skyrim like a fair. We could actually talk about that as well, but I've never given Skyrim like a true. Well, that's not 100% true, but I've never like tried with Skyrim. Like I've always done it like casually. And recently I've actually like loaded up like a save that was like pretty close to the beginning of the game. Like I'm actually trying to do it again. But that spawned the topic of like, because we were talking about Fallout 3 and all that kind of stuff. And that's how we got into like 2008 as like a gaming year. Because like there's a bunch of games, because that's like, we were talking about the fact that like a big reason why we think that year was so big was because that was like, it was like the release of the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and it was the peak of like the console war and the fact that the competition between like Sony and Microsoft
with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox.
Specifically like that era
generation of consoles
was like that
console. That was the tipping point.
Yeah, because you also had like the Wii and everything at the same time,
which wasn't in the same like category.
No,
like
but
graphics and game. But I think like.
That outsold.
Was it
the Wii out? I'm pretty sure. We may have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the Wii ultimately, maybe not in 2008, but the Wii like wound up outselling both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 because their whole marketing angle was like the family can like enjoy this as opposed to like, oh, your gamer son or daughter, like just they want this console, which is what the PS3 and the Xbox 360 was at the time. Obviously for people
the Wii did sell the best.
Yeah.
It outsold the Xbox and PS3. I
didn't even think about the Wii until literally right now.
Over 100 million units, and then Xbox 360 was 84 million units, and PlayStation 3 was 87. I really thought Xbox 360. I thought Microsoft was.
The Xbox had a better reputation.
Yeah,
but the PlayStation 3 was monumental. I think because the PlayStation. I mean, this is still kind of the situation, but at that time in particular, the whole angle that. Because Microsoft took the thing of like multiplayer games and like community, like making it easy to like for gamers to game together online in particular. And the PS3 did that too, but it wasn't like as big of a focus. The Sony was like, we're gonna make like solid ass single player experiences.
Because I pulled up and it has the list of the all time best selling consoles. And so, what do you think number one is?
PlayStation 2.
Yes, with 160 million units.
Dude, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3 had like a bunch of hype. The PlayStation 2, I had multiple. I wound up having multiple. The PlayStation 2 was gigantic.
So you know number one. What do you think the top three are? Like you got consoles? The PlayStation. Yeah, the top three all selling consoles all time.
Is the Switch up there?
It is.
Which number is it?
Take a guess. 3? Yes.
Okay. Wow. I'm like spit. Yeah, I'm like getting
that's
these
2 for 2.
So wait. So number one is PlayStation 2 and number 3 is the Nintendo Switch.
Yes. I'll give you a hint. It's another Nintendo system.
Is it the Wii?
No.
Oh, is it the N64?
No.
What decade are we talking about?
2000s.
And it's number
2000 to 2010. 2004 to 2010.
Oh, is it the GameCube?
Nope.
What is it?
It's the DS.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel so stupid. Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's crazy.
two for 3. I'm at a 70%.
Out of the top 3, Nintendo has 2. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, Nintendo's fucking.
Dude, they just
I forget that Nintendo is like gigantic.
Yeah, and they're like rolling it big. They don't really like have as much controversy as like Microsoft and Sony.
Most of their controversy just is the fact that they're kind of they treat their IP like Disney, but in the gaming world.
Yes,
that's where their controversy is.
Yeah.
But it's not. But I know what you're saying.
It's not nothing like. It's like, whoa, Wii is coming in and like knocking head. Or I mean, Switch just came in and like absolutely destroyed everything.
I remember because the Switch released in 2016 or 17. And I remember I was in Santa Fe at the time, and it was like release day. I happened to have a car in college because I was out of state, and a lot of people that I knew were from out of state. So I actually had a car. So I drove my friend to GameStop like release day.
Yeah.
To like
get the Switch.
Dude,
was it like midnight release or was it just a regular? Just the day of release?
It was the day of. Like
was there
when the stores opened.
For it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe not like the biggest line that like existed, but there was a line. Like we got there like an hour beforehand,
Yeah.
and there were already people.
I
there.
remember.
Like,
I think
it
my
was
mom.
crazy.
I'd have to talk to her about. She waited in line from midnight for the PlayStation 2 release to get it for my brother for Christmas. She said she waited for hours.
Oh yeah,
hours upon hours. Dude, she was part of that. Did you see all the like news broadcasts and recordings of the like PlayStation 2 release? It was like the big. I'm not surprised that it's number one because it was like the biggest thing in the world.
Because the PlayStation 2 had
people were like camping out for weeks beforehand.
Because the PlayStation 2 that might be the most influential console ever so far.
It was just such
like
a leap.
Yeah, because Sony really like harkened in on like their whole thing, and it's been this way forever. Their whole thing is like graphics.
Yeah.
And with the PlayStation 2 at the time, because like Metal Gear Solid 2 was on the PlayStation and 3 were on the PlayStation 2. Metal Gear Solid 3 was on the PlayStation 2. That game was actually they debated, Kojima and everybody debated waiting and like reformatting it for the PS3 because it was taking so long, and because like because the Snake Eater was like pushing the PlayStation 2 like crazy. Like when you look at Snake Eater, like the original release of it, you can see like, oh, this is almost like the PS3 level. Yeah, like with what they're doing, it's crazy.
They're big into their software.
Oh yeah,
I feel like Sony's big into their software.
But the PlayStation 2 had. I mean, that's where like the Sly Cooper that's where like the Sly Cooper games, the Jack and Daxter games, like Ratchet and Clank, those 3 trilogies, because all 3 trilogies came out on the PlayStation 2, and those are some of the biggest for PlayStation. Those were like the mascots for a long time. Crash Bandicoot also had like some releases, but he had like a weird that franchise. Like that was definitely like a PlayStation 1 franchise, because when it transitioned into PlayStation 2, it was just the games that were made weren't as good.
We had a PlayStation 1 as well, and we had Spyro and Crash and all that.
Oh, Spyro too. Yeah.
Spyro.
Yeah, you see, that's a PlayStation 1 era about this, too.
Like a couple episodes ago in the anthropomorphic animal with side adventure friend or talking animal friend.
Well, yeah, because that was also because Banjo Kazooie and Kazooie were like
Ratchet and Banjo, and
because Banjo and Kazooie were like the what console? I know it was Nintendo. Was it? It was the N64 or like
Banjo?
or was it the GameCube?
No, Banjo was N64. Banjo and Kazooie's first game was N60. Yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't.
It was sounded annoying in the N64. Yeah.
N64. Yeah, but just we're getting off the topic of 2008, but it doesn't matter. This is just
late.
Yes, but. I'm going to stick on the PS2 thing for a second longer, because the PlayStation 2, like, just I'm thinking of like that, like just okay, for as awesome as like Xbox and everything is.
See, I was
when Sony with the PlayStation 2 in particular, they knew like when you turn the console on, like that. That
well, they're gonna I'm looking for
now we're actually on camera, so you're just like, oh yeah,
you gotta really you gotta lose your vape,
lose your vape guy. But like just turning on the PlayStation 2, they knew
you look like a man that's looking for his vape. But
I do.
No, I don't know. It's just
I think.
So you see someone like very angry, and you're like, "You look like a man that's looking for your vape."
Are you a little upset?
What the fuck? That looks like a man that's looking for his vape.
Did you lose your vape, bud? Huh?
Did you lose your vape between the couch cushions, bud?
Yeah, exactly. But just I don't know. The PlayStation 2, it had just so many like god tier games came out on that system.
Yes.
Like I can't even like
PlayStation 2 specifically.
The PlayStation 2 specifically, because like both Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 came out on
Vice City,
San Andreas, Vice City, and what's the other one?
3 came out.
3 came out on okay.
3 came out on PlayStation 2.
PlayStation 2 is GTA 3, San Andreas, Vice City. What's the other one? Chinatown Wars was on the PSP or whatever that's
DS.
called. Or whatever. Well, but I feel like I'm forgetting one, like a GTA PS2 era game.
I don't think
Was it
so.
just San Andreas? Maybe I
Like,
am.
it's-
Maybe
it
it
was-
was just three
It
San
was 3
Andreas
San
and
Andreas
then
Vice City.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
and that was
That's
those
3 big games right there.
Oh yeah,
bro.
San Andreas in particular. San Andreas. Some of San Andreas is dated because I've played a lot of San Andreas. I haven't actually finished the story of San Andreas, but I played San Andreas and I was like, oh, I get why. Because I had played like 4 and 5, and I was like, oh, I'll like go back to like San Andreas and see what it's like. And I was like, oh, this game is great. Like there's still shit in San Andreas that like I really feel like Rockstar. They kind of returned to it a little bit in like Red Dead Redemption 2 of all of their series. Like some of the shit that's in Red Dead Redemption 2 was like, oh, this is like San Andreas level.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. I feel like GTA 6 needs to definitely go back to like San Andreas
I just feel
level.
like what people like San Andreas so much is that I feel like that was peak Rockstar just not giving a fuck.
Well, because it's like
about,
it's
like,
almost
because that was
it's
also
almost an RPG.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
the thing about
it's
San
amidst
Andreas.
like their crazy controversies, and they even like put a code in the whole
coffee
the coffee
date
thing,
mod
and they
or
would,
whatever
but
or
because
not
it was
mod,
like
but
they
the-
looked into it and it was like actually code in the game that was on the disc, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, so this was. I just feel like it was the peak of them just not
Yeah.
caring in the sense of like what everybody the like politics and the society around those games of like in their because they had that very what's the word, stigmatism.
Oh, you mean like all the like the news things and everything
yeah,
of like,
yeah, like
oh,
news
it's like
outlet,
gonna
GTA.
cause, it's gonna
They're
cause,
killing prostitutes and throwing babies off of roofs and
Yeah.
shit.
yeah,
It's the devil's work. It was like the whole GTA when they went to court and stuff like that, and I just feel
and they
like
lost
but
eventually.
I think Rockstar,
Not Rockstar, the people that were going against Rockstar
No,
lost.
they tried to ban. They went to like they
They
tried,
tried to
ban
pull like an
violent-
Australia. They tried
yeah,
to pull like an Australian
Can't make them
government
too
type.
violent or censor it.
Yeah. And then because we're in America, they were completely legally speaking within the right to release a game like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they did because San Andreas is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. The number 5
I just think
joke
that
thing
was
is still awesome.
Yeah.
Number 5 and number 7. Oh, can I get a salad? And the guy's like, man, what the fuck? What are you doing? Yeah. So good. It's awesome.
That's great.
But yeah, the PS2 era was the PlayStation 2 just an impeccable releases. But the thing is, all of this really truly leads up to 2008.
Yeah.
Like that was like what laid the groundwork for some of the best video games ever made, which was because like 2008 was like the true beginning of like basically from was it like 2008 to like 2013 was like was the 360 and the PS3 era.
Yeah.
Where like how many years is that, like 8 years, something like the 6 to 8 years? Because like I remember because like after 2008 you have stuff releasing like God of War 3, Metal Gear Solid. Wait, did Metal Gear Solid 4 get released in 2008 on the PS? Okay. Metal Gear Solid 4 is like a weird masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like that game's a masterpiece, but it's
strange.
weird. It's weird.
It's a very strange
It's
game.
weird, and there's shit in it that's like that is obligatorily not good, but it's still it's still a masterpiece. Like it has bad things in it, but overall it's like a groundbreaking game.
Fantastic.
Graphically for one, but also just because Kojima, that was like, I feel like, well, Metal Gear Solid 5 is technically, in my opinion, like peak Metal Gear Solid from like a gameplay perspective, but Metal Gear Solid 4 was amazing. But then like God of War 3 comes out, and then like in 2011 is when the first Black Ops came out. I mean, Call of Duty in general just had like a gigantic run throughout that whole that generation of gaming.
Black Ops came out 2009. No.
I think it was 2011. It was like 2010. Yeah, it was 2010.
Because that year, if 2008 was World at War, then the next year was Modern Warfare 3. Because Treyarch was World at War. And then Activision was Modern Warfare. And they switched it off every year. That's basically how they were able to fucking pump out a game every year.
Yeah.
And so Modern Warfare was Treyarch. And so that would be 2009 would be Modern Warfare 3. And then 2010, it was Modern Warfare 3. And then 2010 would be Black Ops, which I consider the best.
Black Ops is still the best Call of Duty game, like for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's hard to describe, especially like to people that are like not that much younger than us.
Yeah.
Like how big of a deal gaming is bigger now than it ever has been.
Yeah.
But like the time period from like 2008 to like 2013, it like progressed so much.
But I think there's a lot of kind of what in 2000 to 2000, probably 10 would be considered like kind of, put that in your geek closet.
Yeah.
Or nerd closet. Whereas like past
that, that's like, when like nerd culture started becoming normal.
Yeah. So I feel like it's just normal to like shit, like video games and anime.
Now,
and stuff
but at the time,
like,
it was still like weirdly stigmatized.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it really was like our like millennials and like older Gen Z people such as ourselves that like really, because we grew up with all of this shit, and then like we're now adults.
Everybody had that secret nerd closet, and then everybody realized that when you started talking to other people, it's like, oh, you hit that shit too. It's like, oh, you too, and you like when you realize the whole office loves Last Airbender, and you're hiding that shit, and you're like you're talking to Last Airbender, and next thing you know, you're going to like Comic-Con as the different characters and shit. Like that's what it is. Like everybody realized that we all kind of like the shit that we were hiding. Yeah. When we were trying to seem cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Which is
just grown up.
Which is exactly. Because like.
But I just think that pushed. I think now more than ever, it's like it's just so normal. It's not even like cool to be. Because I remember it kind of, I think it overcorrected, and then it's like, it's cool to be nerd. And then like everybody was like trying to jump in on it and get like, there's a whole rush of people like,
I think from like
gamers and people that were into stuff like that weren't actually, they were just kind of like utilizing it money wise. And then
I think from like that era was like from was like from 2013 to like 2018 roughly was that era. And I think now we're beyond that. Where it's like
overcorrect. We shot up and it was like, oh, it's cool. And then when it became cool, it overcorrected. And I think we're like back down to where it's just kind of like
normal.
It's normal, so no one's like going out of their way to like something that
I remember
they don't necessarily like.
I remember like. This is a weird example of this, but like Smosh game, not what Smosh Games is now. Yeah. But like Smosh Games, like circa 2010 to like 13. I remember they were like big. That channel in particular was big. Like we're like nerdy. Their like brand was like we're like the nerdy gamer channel, like video game. Not
very
like,
cool, very cool. I think that this is encapsulated. Obviously, if we have any fans of Red Letter Media out of here, but the Nerd Crew when they do their stuff, that's like the encapsulation of that era.
Yeah,
of that era.
Well, because they were basically blatantly making fun of specifically like Collider. Is what they were making fun of. And they should, because Collider got like cringy with the degree to which they were like trying to be nerdy. It was like, and Red Letter Media saw that and they're like, we're gonna make fun of these dweebs. And they deserved it.
Nerd Crew is like a little bit of internet history. I
wish they could still, honestly, they could make. But the joke is like dead. Yeah, but they were so good at it.
Like we all understand it now. There's so much we overcorrected so much that there's so much Star Wars shit, and now people don't want Star Wars shit and don't like it that much.
Yeah,
and this is going for.
Well, Star Wars just outstayed its welcome.
I'm using Star Wars as an example, just because there's a billion franchises like that now, but we've entered that era where it's just like. You kind of like
franchise filmmaking or entertainment, really.
Yeah, so people aren't like.
I feel like we're speaking of like franchise entertainment.
I think we're more into like the toxic fandom now.
I feel like we're like exiting that era because everybody's kind of tired of to a certain degree. I feel like
I don't think so.
Really?
No, I think the fandoms are still very toxic or can be.
Well, no, not the toxic part. I mean like. Yes, I think we're in the toxic part of it, but I'm saying like I feel like we're exiting like well actually we already said it.
We already said it. The part where people are trying to be fake cool and now everybody's kind of like gatekeeping and being kind of cringy. We entered that where it's just like you're not a Star Wars fan. And now like they're assholes.
Yeah. Exactly.
But overall, I think we've chilled out on the over like abundance of just over nerd. You know?
Yeah, I mean the thing is like we've chilled out on the nerd thing, but feel like we've been in this era. I think since like 2020, we've been in like the brain rot era.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
like
I would
for a
call it
while
that,
now.
yeah.
We've been in it for at least since
Eras.
like
We'll call this episode
the
our
era.
Eras tour.
Yeah, just go down the line,
Yeah.
folks.
There's
Of entertainment, the recent the last 20
I was
years.
also making a Taylor Swift joke.
Do you see what I have to deal with?
Constantly on a daily basis.
Yes. Now I
You-
can
I like
now
how
I can
you
pull
look
now I
towards
can
the
now I can
camera.
pull a Jim Halpert and be like,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
like just
Gym faces.
just exactly. But yeah, what were we just talking? That totally got me off the train.
Our
toxic.
Eras-
We're in the
our Eras tour.
We're in the but the brain rot era.
Brain rot.
The brain rot
Toxic
/ like
fandom.
toxic fandom era.
Toxic fandoms and brain rot.
Fortnite.
And just
Fortnite is like the-
nonsense. There's always
Fortnite-
been nonsense humor, but there's just
It's gotten like if like our parents looked at it, they would be like, I literally
It's gotten-
don't understand what
I
these
know,
tomes
I talked
are
about
that
this
you
guy a
kids
lot.
are making.
recently because of his passing and stuff, but it's very Lynchian.
Oh, yeah, David Lynch.
Like you look up at some memes of like Gen Alpha, and you're like, what is this? Is this like a weird art piece of sorts?
Yeah, because like our generation, millennials and like Gen Z, roughly Gen Z,
Yeah.
like for our age, have like made we made some weird shit like Big Chungus and
Yeah.
whatnot. But Gen Alpha are like they're like off the
It's
chain weird now, and it's funny too.
It's
That's like the
funny,
thing.
yeah.
It's funny.
I think
It's
it's
really
funny.
funny, but it's so like weird comparatively,
Mm-hmm.
especially like. If you look at like older millennial humor, there's like like eras. There's like dead center millennial humor.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like Gen Z humor, and then there's Gen Alpha humor.
Yeah.
And I feel like Gen Z and Alpha are way closer to like this like having overlap than like especially like Alpha to millennial. But even like Gen Z to millennial humor is so like different. Like if you like iFunny era is like in my mind that's like millennial humor, like the rage comics and whatnot. It's just different.
Yeah.
Is my
Yeah, we
point.
had like Rage comics and
'Cause I remember having iFunny as an app
Yeah,
on my
I had
phone
iFunny too.
and being like, and like saving things to like my camera roll to like
Yeah.
show people. Now I wouldn't do any of it.
no.
Now it's just
And it always
Instagram.
had that
Now it's way
little
more
iFunny.
convenient. Yeah. It had the little
there's
watermark.
a ton of things now.
Because now it's all about sending like TikToks
Instagram,
and reels to
TikTok,
people.
yeah, reels.
It's the same thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's like more shareable.
Yeah.
Because there's
It literally
there's
had its
infrastructure
own
now.
mini arc of like picture like
Of
painting
memes?
and film. It like literally had its mini arc of
Yeah.
what it is, you know. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, but it's just, but like it's going back to gaming. Gaming also like gaming and like the general like online culture is so like with the humor and memes. It's
Yeah.
so like integrally intertwined.
Yeah, with
honestly,
everything, but-
compared to like other like cultural phenomena,
Yeah.
I feel like gaming and memes is so like
Yeah.
together.
And there's so many different parts, like the eras.
But
it moved so fucking fast. I
It
feel
happened in the
like.
span of like 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is not a long time. That's like barely a generation. And it's like, and it's even defined like the culture of like baby boomers.
Yeah.
Like that's how like influential it is. Because I don't feel like it really was quite like that historically. Like, yes,
Yeah.
the younger generations affected the older generations, but I feel like the past like 15 to 20 years in particular has been like a monumental shift.
Yeah.
Where like online
Especially like
culture
online and like tech has just been crazy.
crazy.
It's just fast.
But the thing is, I feel like we're in just like this weird. We're in like
But it's like when you
we're
make
in like
one
a
thing, it
plateau.
helps you
I feel like
make
we're in
like
like
a
a
billion other things, you know?
But I feel like we're in like a weird plateau era in general with like everything right now where like the technology is kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
And like culture kind of
We had our
is
Black
plateauing.
Plague.
What?
We had our Black Plague or bubonic plague.
what, 2020?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, kind of, yeah. In regards to, well, culturally,
COVID.
no,
yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but like you're talking about culturally.
Yeah. I'm just comparing us to sad French people. But I was trying to get that point across, but that joke didn't land at all.
No, not well. I didn't. Maybe it landed for them, but for me, it's because I'm dumb. It just
No, it's just
because I thought
I should have just started out. We had our bubonic plague. We had our Renaissance. Now we're on to the just chill out phase.
Yeah. Because at the first I thought for a second you were referencing Nosferatu for like a second, and I was like, that's not what he's referencing. He's not referencing that
just
very
life,
specific
the
thing on the
eras.
ship. Yeah. But like, yeah, well, that's it. That's actually an interesting thing
In terms of like
to like have historically to have from a cultural standpoint to like
especially-
have a
and then develop-
pandemic.
yeah.
Just bam, right in like the
then
middle
look
of
at
it
that
really.
and, like,
It
and
really
have
kind of like pulled the it pulled like the emergency brake, I feel like, pretty harshly on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only I mean, you know, we're recording this in 2025 now.
Yeah.
So it's like it's been 5 years
I literally
officially.
said to my mom earlier, I was like, it's been a fever dream of a 5 years. I think
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
we all just died in 2020. And this is all where a weird purgatory.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been the world culturally. Well,
I just feel like so
that's why I
much
said
weird
that's
shit
why I said the
happened.
brain rot era really started like
Yeah,
in
2020. Boom, yes.
Because it's because of that. It's because the entire world
Yeah.
experienced something and we're all having to like recover from it.
Yeah.
And we kind of are, but we're also kind of not. It's like there's like an unrepairable aspect to many things in life that have happened since 2020. But from a cultural standpoint, I feel like that's when like I really started seeing all the like doomer stuff.
Yeah.
Was in particular like 2022, I think, is when like the doomer culture stuff, in particular with like at the time, like, you know, in like 2020, I was like what, 23 or something like that. So like early 20s people, because you were what, like 25, 24 in 2020.
I was 45.
I look 45 compared to you. I look 45 because I'm like bald.
I'm 19 years old. I'm not giving my age to these people. They don't need to know.
One day we'll have the
Unless I've already said it, and I've totally forgot. I
probably
have.
you comb through people. Just
You're
comb
not
through
going to
it.
do that. You probably haven't canceled. Most of you have probably left by now.
Most of our
Or come
audience,
through.
most of our audience at this
Lucas,
point is
tell
just
us.
Lucas, you were the first commenter on our video. Tell us. We know. We saw it. We talked to you about
I mean, that one guy.
it. We just bleep out his name. No, I feel like he'd be ecstatic that we just named.
I don't know.
We just
We'll
like,
ask him prehand. We'll cut this out.
I feel like I think it would be funny. But anyways,
Yeah.
the back to brain rot. I don't know. I bet it's like it's kind of weird to talk about because like it kind of is like an all encompassing thing when you think about it. Like it's all built upon it. I mean, that's how history works, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's been so exponentially like crammed in.
Yeah, I even find myself watching YouTube more than
anything.
I'm like chronically online through YouTube.
Through
more.
YouTube?
Like, that's where I
YouTube
get a
is-
lot of my like entertainment now.
I feel like YouTube really is. What is that term for like?
Dude, it's gonna sneak up in the next couple of years. I swear to God. Like people, I feel like people.
What
have-
is the brain rot?
No, YouTube.
In what way?
I still, it's still seen as like a substandard form in some way of like to like
Kind of.
film and stuff.
Kind
but
of.
I really feel like
That.
I'm not
that
saying
is,
it is.
No,
I'm
I
saying
know.
There's a lot of like people that see it as that way, and what I'm saying is I think people really underdog it, and I can see. It's YouTube's basically like a cable package, but you get to choose what you want to watch constantly, and it's free, you know. So
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think that's a really interesting point because it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that in general
Even-
has
yeah.
changed a lot.
Yeah.
Like the view of it has. I mean,
Yeah.
that's been changing since AdSense on YouTube became a thing.
Yeah.
That's been changing. But I know what you're saying, where I feel like since roughly like 2018 2018, I think, is a good benchmark year where like people started taking YouTube, because people were taking YouTube seriously from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I feel like 2018 is when
there
people
was
really
always-
started to
yeah.
understand, like,
I'm not
this
saying-
is like a serious
People within
place.
the YouTube community and that watch you, they take it serious. People outside of the YouTube community don't. They don't know anything about that part of the environmental zeitgeist of things. If you are not like online, then you're just not part of that. And there's people out there that are just not a part of that. They can see movies and TV because that somehow gets through like DVDs and other sorts of ways. There's just certain things within YouTube, you know. I don't know. You know?
Well, there's a term I'm trying to think of. It's not a marketplace, but it's like when people were comparing Twitter to this, like it's the you know what I'm talking about, like the place where like people come to like speak and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like what used to, like in the olden days, they'd like the town square. That's what it is, like the town square where people would talk. I feel like YouTube has become that.
Yeah.
More so than Twitter or any other website on the entirety of the internet. YouTube is like the town square.
Yeah, it's
for
just
like
that
everything.
they could really sneak up and absolutely crush the fucking everything, but it's due to how poorly they treat their creators and just like not like working with, just based off of.
Well, because the thing is, in order
What
for them to
everybody
even,
says
in order
about-
for YouTube to like treat you properly,
Yeah.
you have to have like 1 million subs.
Yeah.
Like literally.
And even then, people
And
are
even then,
like,
they're still like,
you get
know what
demonetized.
you know what it
have
is.
to do all
You
this
have to
shit.
you have to have two things. You have to have like roughly 1 million subscribers, and then you have to have a YouTube rep.
Yeah.
That like you can like email or call. Then you're like good.
Yeah,
In my
it's slowly
opinion,
becoming more
but-
Hollywoodized.
Yeah, and
is
I
the
think
problem.
and I think it's both a problem and like a good thing in a weird way. In the sense, it's good only in the sense that like it's being taken more seriously.
Yeah.
But it's bad in the sense that like
not everybody. It kind of
The-
is
'cause-
eluding the whole point of YouTube in the first place. Of
Yeah.
like, oh, you can make.
well, broadcast yourself.
Yeah.
That used to, they I mean, there's a reason they took that off. Because that used to be the slogan of YouTube. And this fucking podcast is going on to YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it used to be. Yeah, hi.
Hi, I waved.
Hi, yeah, hi,
for the
YouTube.
people listening on the
Yeah,
on Spotify. We're talking
yeah.
about Spotify people. You're chill. I like Spotify. I have no problems with Spotify, honestly.
Well, Spotify. There's controversy around Spotify for. Have you
yeah,
heard? have
Joe
you heard-
Rogan's shit or what?
No.
Okay.
About it's specifically the
I don't listen to
The
Joe
problem with
Rogan.
Spotify is kind of the same problem. Spotify has the same problem that like YouTube has or had in its earlier days with AdSense with creators and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it's the same. It literally is like a money thing, like a monetization thing, because
Oh,
with like
yeah.
streams
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
the
yeah,
payout and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
It's the same thing, but it reminds me of like 14, 15
With
era
Napster?
YouTube. No, after that.
Yeah.
Like when YouTube started becoming like more legitimate with like the AdSense and the algorithm and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's that,
Yeah.
but with Spotify, because
Yes.
Spotify is newer. Spotify's dealing with that because Spotify is like the only, because there's like Apple Music and Tidal and all that shit, but it's like, if we're gonna be real, it's like for like your internet entertainment content, you're going to either YouTube for like video visual stuff, or you're going for like audio listening for like podcasts or like music. You're going to Spotify. It's one or the other at this point. They're the two like big dogs in town. And I feel like Spotify. It's ironic because this podcast is on both of these platforms. We're not even big on either of these, and we're just like, "Rah!"
We're like, well,
But it's true.
We know things.
Yeah,
We don't.
but
we
we
really
don't.
We're talking out our
But
asses.
But Spotify that is like a real thing. I've seen so many people that I follow on Instagram that are like musical artists that are just like they feel, because they are. It's kind of the same thing as YouTube. They feel forced to have to put their stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
But they don't get paid what they really should be getting paid. And even on YouTube right now, like, yes, it's technically better with AdSense, but AdSense is still like weird. Like it's still, that's why everybody has like a fucking Patreon or whatever.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's how,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm glad that
can't-
Patreon
yeah.
exists,
Yeah.
frankly, because, and I don't understand, because YouTube kind of, it tried to like add their own version of Patreon, which is like when you can become like a channel member or whatever
There's
that's
so
called.
many like little sections throughout the years of different things, YouTube and other things, trying to try stuff that I completely just like block out of my memory entirely.
Yeah, because like YouTube
sometimes.
Red,
Yeah. It
which
just
still
like,
technically is a
yeah.
thing. Well, that was a this episode really just turned into like the eras of like this is like the eras of culture. It's like this whole
Yeah.
conversation
Well,
we've been
it
happening.
started out with video games in
games.
2008, which makes sense. And then we
It
just
does.
got to a broader topic from there.
Yeah, but like freaking wait, what did you just say about it was YouTube in the era
They
that
just in the different eras tour of YouTube. Everybody's releasing an eras tour this year, Patrick.
Yeah.
Didn't you know?
well, yeah, I
Taylor Swift blew up, so everybody's making a.
mean, last year was Charlie XCX's with the Brat Summer thing.
Yeah.
That was her era for sure.
Yeah.
I would say
Well,
that
the-
was
the
bigger
eras-
than like I would say that was bigger than Taylor Swift, frankly, in
Yeah.
regards to like culture, like impact. But yeah, YouTube because there was a time in like the late 2010s when YouTube with like YouTube Red and like YouTube Originals. Because I remember there was more than just this example, but I remember like Red and Link for like a season or two of like GMM. It was like a YouTube original show where like YouTube was trying to like. It was like their first attempt to try and like legitimize themselves, I think, in the eyes of what you were talking about of like traditional media, like film, TV, and all that.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we're gonna, and which I think was a smart idea, maybe not so much in the execution. In the execution apparently was like pretty shitty from like a creator standpoint, but like they were like, we're gonna literally invest money back into like the people that are making our platform popular.
Yeah.
But what happened was it was almost like an inevitable thing that happened is like the content that was made was so like sterile, and it wasn't like they truly were like, it wasn't like what I think they should have done, where they should have like collaborated as if like, you know, when like people on YouTube like collaborate with one another. I feel like they should have had that angle on it where it was truly like a collaboration between the company and the people that are making the company a thing. Instead, it came across way more like a movie studio funding like a director or a writer, and which is that's not what YouTube is or has been, and they needed to not, and they still are kind of doing that, and it's not what they need to be doing. And I think in order for YouTube to like reach that next level, they need to stop thinking that way, like the company, and they need to think like the people that have made their platform popular.
Yeah.
Where it's like they need to like YouTube needs to like rebrand, not like this website, but like the people that work at YouTube need to almost like rebrand themselves as like creators first, actually, instead of being like because yes, they're a company, and that's like an inevitable part of like what they are.
Profit.
Yeah, exactly. But like
Don't exist.
correct.
That's
And like,
like, you know.
and that's, you can't avoid that. But I think they need to like they need to like reshift their thinking and how they interact with the people that like, frankly, make them money. They technically, in a weird way, this is a whole other thing where it's like they're like are like YouTube creators, employees of YouTube, when they technically aren't, but they are at the same time. It's this weird like middle ground thing.
But see
But they aren't. That's the thing.
The big creators that are making YouTube the big money.
Yeah, like fucking Mr. Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
But
they
the thing
don't
is,
care about the people with even just like 1 million or 2 million subs.
Yeah, no, they're looking at
YouTube's fucking me, and it's like, okay, that's nothing.
Yeah, they're looking at like the 50 million
50
people.
plus million subscriber people.
Like
how the
you know, like
that came out of my mouth,
subscribered.
and that sounded weird to me. Subscribed people. That doesn't sound like a real word. Subscribed people.
Yeah.
And I totally blanked out on what we were talking about.
I did a little bit too, but the point, the overall point we were talking about was that YouTube, we were saying, or at least I was saying, that YouTube needs to shift its approach.
Yeah.
Frankly, as a business.
That's what I was saying. Okay, so basically, that's a good idea overall, and like on paper, yes. But does YouTube actually?
But then there's the
care about-
execution of like how you would even
and
do
if
that.
They actually care about creator first.
And I don't think they do.
I don't really think
ironically
they do anymore. So it doesn't really.
Because I don't even know, like, as a company, I'm not even like, because I know of people like creators on YouTube and like what they do, but YouTube as a company, they've kind of become this weird like amorphous blob that is the platform, but like as far as what they actually do has become like kind of a mystery to me, to be honest, because obviously they're facilitating like they're facilitating the platform and like keeping like the infrastructure running, and like that part I get. But it's all the other shit that like what's like where the fuck is all this money going? Like for like people in the company, and like what are they really doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and that's kind of the thing. The problem with YouTube is I don't think anybody, unless you're in the company, maybe I don't know if they really know anymore
what's going on with not even half, most of the problems in the world. Unless you're in it, you don't know what the fuck's happening. So it doesn't. It's like it's just whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but I think we kind of
covered the
YouTube era of everything.
YouTube era / that.
but to go way back to how this even got started, though, yes, I do think that my point in bringing any of that up is that I feel like that's what I think YouTube would, as a company, would need to push in order for them to truly reach what you were saying, which is like that next level. Because I feel like they've been like at the line for a long time, but they haven't like crossed it. And I wonder if they don't even know how to cross it, really, is like my point. Into becoming more of like a cultural, into becoming more like what you were talking about of like movie studios and like TV, but not being like, in regards to influence, being like that, but not being like a movie studio or like these big entertainment studios that are like shit, you know? Yeah. That's my thought. That's my. I can get off my soapbox of YouTube now. Good, dude. But yeah,
I was thinking about to go back to video games. What we were talking about with the 2008 being peak for video games is we were talking about that because that generation of consoles bred some of the best games through the console war.
Because of competition.
And then we were talking about how after that, about the Xbox One and
the PS4,
it became more about...
It tapered off a lot.
Creating more of an entertainment system than a gaming system.
Yeah.
Which kind of like...
Which I think in retrospect is like a mistake.
Yeah, it cut off the like competition of console wars, and they kind of... Which, because I covered this, I've said this too to you, is I think the overall, the console wars overall is kind of stupid if you want to play games. Just like release, it's obviously, it's, again, with the YouTube discussion we just had, it's all money based. It's all like, oh, if we have console, people are going to buy our shit.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not, it's less, it's like, because Microsoft wants people to buy the Xbox and PlayStation, and Sony wants people
the PlayStation. Nintendo wants people to buy the Switch and everything.
But now it's more like, I don't know. The exclusive titles are few and far between. When I
hear like an exclusive, I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why are you doing
barely
that?
Even. And then
exactly. It isn't really now. Well, because part of this I think has to do with the fact because like younger people during that time I think really pushed why there was competition in the first place. Yeah. But the kind of a problem that they're all dealing with, all the gaming companies, is like all those people grew up now, and there's still, I mean, yes, there's still younger people that are obviously into gaming, like way more so, frankly, than probably even our generation. But the generation that like made that, like the generation that lifted them up in the first place, we're all like adults now. We don't need a console. We were just talking about the fact, like you buy or build a PC of any kind, Mac, actual, whatever. You can play any video game, and it's way cheaper. It's way like overall from like a lifetime of like the literal, because that's all a console is. It's a computer. But like the thing about like a PC is you can either add like components to a PC to like upgrade it, or you can just buy a new PC. And it's like way more specced out than like a PS5 or like an Xbox Series X or whatever. And ultimately, it's like technically, even if it's more expensive from like an initial purchase perspective, from a lifetime perspective, because you're not just using that computer for like gaming.
That's a good,
like
building a PC
an hour
overall is like a good investment.
Yeah, because
in terms of just general, even if it's like even if whatever you're doing,
because like in our case, like besides the gaming aspect, it just so happens like for like film or content creation, and so you the same specs like literally correlate
Yeah,
to
and you
making
can-
stuff like
And
that.
you can adapt,
Or even,
when
like,
you build the
coding
PC
or
too,
anything
you
like
can
that.
adapt it and build it to like adjust to the both
Yeah.
of them, and or switch
Yeah.
out parts when you. It's like it's more.
And like the realization of this,
Yeah.
like really like knocked the wind out of this competition.
Yeah.
That's like Sony and Microsoft in particular, Nintendo too.
Yeah.
But Sony and Microsoft really were like the two like guys in the ring duking it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like they kind of have found
This is
themselves
all-
in a situation where like the crowd is not the
Yeah.
crowd is not large watching
Yeah.
them anymore in the ring.
This is all coming from someone, by the way, that owns a PS5 and a MacBook.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a PC yet.
Well, I mean, I- but-
either. I
well,
just know that
yeah.
everybody that is switched, and it could be different for I don't know who's ever watching and whatnot or listen whenever in 10,000 years when they discover his camera underneath rubble or some shit. And they're
Yeah,
like
after like World War V.
15.
yeah, yeah, 15.
Yeah, it gets shorter time spans the further down we go.
Yeah.
So to be like,
But yeah, like, yeah, definitely. I think that, like, I don't know. I like,
yeah.
I had like a complete brain fart.
Dude,
I
keep-
had a thought, and
it's
it just
always
left.
towards
it just
the
left.
end. It's just gone.
Yeah, it had to do with what we were talking about, is the point. But
Yeah.
but with gaming and
So I have a PS5 and a MacBook, but everybody
yeah,
that, everybody that has switched over says it's totally. I've not heard once from one person that they like did not enjoy that switch over. Like once they took the leap to like switch to PC or build their own PC, they're like, oh yeah, it was the best decision. I've not met a single person that's like not like that.
Because the thing that you like, because I've done that, because like I built in 2020, I built my first computer like myself, and like started using it for not just gaming, but from a gaming perspective, it literally is like, it's like, there's an analogy in my brain that's not fully formed, but like, you know, like you've heard of like source code, right?
Yeah.
For like programs. It's like you've been locked in like a specific kind of like coding language or something like that, and then you get the source code to something, and then you realize like, oh, everything is unlocked now. That's like the experience of like, oh shit, like I can
it's
any
like an end-all, be-all
era
thing,
any
too.
era of video game ever.
You watch movies, do like
You
make
work.
films, you can work. You just like it just becomes
do
like literally the all.
It becomes like a true, not even just like an entertainment system.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes an entertainment system for sure, but it becomes like more than that.
Yeah.
And you literally are like, from like a technological standpoint, like I can be entertained and work all on this single device.
Yeah.
And that's not even building a PC. That's like the same thing. It's like with laptops too, or even phones now to a certain degree. They're not as powerful still, but like phones even still are kind of like that. I mean, so much like coming back to like the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or like most of their viewer base is from fucking us on our phones watching shit, like legitimately. So because I think ultimately a lot of like what we're talking about comes down to like technology.
Yeah.
With video games and
different
video games, the
like
internet,
where it
like
starts
the general like shift in culture.
A little bit more of going generation by generation, but we just started out wanting to talk about video games that came out in 2008, which
because they were like
it
mostly
was like,
fucking sick.
Holy fucking shit! How many video games came out that year that were like absolutely bonkers?
Yeah, I mean,
Out of this
you
list,
said the list. Like, go ahead.
I think I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something. I think my number one video game of 2008 is a tie between Dead Space and Gears of War 2. That's gonna be my choices.
I automatically just have to pick Little Big Planet.
Yeah,
The first one.
yeah.
That game was like that was like an indie game. Almost, not completely, but like that was an indie game that had the backing of a company to have a AAA release.
Yeah.
And that Little Big Planet 1 is, in my mind, like a real landmark video game.
Yes.
I mean, but the thing is like, it's kind of weird thinking about that one in particular, because I think about Little Big Planet 2. and how much better that game is than the first one, but how the first one that wouldn't have existed if the first one wasn't so fucking popular.
Yeah.
Because you know how like they would do like the greatest hits releases and shit like that. Little Big Planet 1 and 2 both got like that greatest hits, like the red thing on like the box and whatnot at like GameStop. Speaking of eras, GameStop died.
I'm going to.
Oh, but they had their resurgence with their stock in 2020, but or 2021. That's different. That's different. You were going on a different thing.
I'm going to hone in on Dead Space. I'm going to say Dead Space.
Yeah, Dead Space.
Number one.
Yeah, Dead Space.
Because I think it rebirthed the survival horror genre of video games entirely.
Oh yeah.
I think before that was.
There was Resident Evil
5.
And
I think I'm trying to think, did 5 come out before or after? Because 5 was kind of like
it was in the roughly the same.
Kind of the downfall of the Resident Evil games. 4 was peak, and then 5 was a disappointment. But other than Resident Evil, though,
we're talking about like horror video games.
But yeah, no,
survival horror.
In terms of horror games, other than Resident Evil, like what around?
I can't think
since the first Resident Evil, like what really like hit a mark and survived. Like, oh shit, that's
at that time it was Dead Space.
Yeah, Dead Space, like through the 2000s, I think. Other than Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space, because I think even early Silent Hill is really good, but more that goes on, the more
that's like. But again, that's a different era.
Yeah, but
really,
that's early 2000s, and then into like around 2008. I think that was like Downpour or Homecoming is Silent Hill. Silent Hill Homecoming.
I don't remember.
Downpour came
I wasn't as into those games at the time, so I don't really.
I don't know.
Remember.
They were just kind of going downhill a little bit and weren't as. So I think and brought something new with the sci-fi and just cool aliens and had this.
Yeah, because
I don't know everything about that game. I could go and we've gone into depth about Dead Space before and how fucking amazing that game.
Yeah, because Dead Space, the first one and the second one, I think both. The third one's kind of It's okay, but the first two. I remember playing like Dead Space 1. Did I play Dead Space 2 first? I think I played 1. They were so close together. I think I played Dead Space 2 before Dead Space 1, weirdly enough. But I remember playing Dead Space 1 for the first time. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's because it combined Dead Space as a franchise, like, did for horror video games. I genuinely believe this. Like it did that with like Alien and Aliens did. In regards to like about this. Impact.
The first and Impact. I even say in the like term of horror, survival horror, whereas like the first one is kind of that isolated dread, slow burn, and that second one is more like we've been through this shit. I'm ready. Like go for, but still scary, but more action to it than like survival horror.
Yeah,
and I love that. That's why Aliens likes Aliens better. You know this. But Dead Space 2 out of the franchises, I think my favorite game, and if not one of the top like games, honestly.
Yeah, I like Dead Space. There's things about Dead Space 2 that I like better. I think if I had to pick one, it would. I don't know. This kind of like is like the thing of like the difference in our personality. Because like I would prefer in general. I love Aliens, but I think Alien I prefer like tonally, and it's kind of the same thing for me with Dead Space. Like the first Dead Space tonally, I'm just like yes, like this is it's just like this bleak fucking world. With like fucking like some of the like the gnarliest body horror in like any franchise I've ever seen, because it's the whole concept of the game is that you're fighting against like completely malformed human beings that are like have become aliens through this like weird like psycho like not psycho like with the marker it's like a weird, it's not like a traditional disease. It's like a weird, I mean, it is, but it's like it's a disease on top of being like it's like being possessed.
Yes.
Essentially, but it also completely malforms your body into whatever.
I think we should save the Dead Space talk.
Oh yeah.
Next episode. We're coming to the end, people. And if you are interested in hearing about our take on Dead Space and the franchise, we'll probably just do that. We'll probably
talk about it anyways, regardless of what y'all think.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Sometime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
we're
was
reaching the end.
that was our Eras tour.
Yes, it was. It was a good. I enjoyed going going down
Thinking
memory
about stuff,
lane.
just kind of like talking about it.
Yeah.
Really, just thinking about the random shit that like happened throughout the different time, and just like, man, how weird it is. It's certain thoughts and feelings of
Yeah, because we really did start in gaming, and we just went into like literally.
just.
We went from like gaming to internet culture.
It was like
And back to gaming.
Yeah, and then back to gaming.
Yeah.
It always comes back.
It
to
comes
gaming.
for people our age. It really does come back to gaming.
There's always money.
There's always money in the GameStop.
I just want to be like Jeffrey Tambor. He's just like, there's always money in GameStop. It always goes back to gaming.
There's always money in GameStop.
There's always money in GameStop.
That's an awesome meme.
It always goes back to gaming. And with that, I'm Sim.
I'm Patrick,
And we're Wizard Core.